Shall I?
Okay.
Just a quick introduction. So this is daughter Evelyn, or Ishtar, has her own dance school, Ishtar Dance, and uh, she has taught many of the safety courses for JWAAD, which includes a whole session on administration and the sort of business behind belly dance. So I asked daughter if she would talk to us about insurance and PRS, things like that, that we often find a little bit of a sort of quagmire. So thanks for joining us, Dorte, and I'll hand over to you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been really interesting listening in this morning. And thank you also for the introduction. So many of you I know, which is lovely. A lot of familiar faces. So a lot of you will know me already, and it's great because some of you I haven't seen in a very long time. So hello. And yeah, I'll add on to the short introduction by Kay. Just say that. Rumor has it I was dancing before I could walk. I was one of those people, that went to dance school at the age of 2, and I did ballroom and Latin later at a competitive level before I switched over to belly dance after a working visit in the Middle East. And that's also where I lived for a short while. And now, as well, since 2004, I've been based in the UK. I am originally from Denmark, but have lived and traveled all over the world. And yeah, I started studying with JWAAD almost straight away after coming to the UK. And I'm honoured to now be one of the tutors on the safety course. And sorry about the lighting, by the way. It was really nicely set up earlier when it was overcast, but it doesn't matter, hopefully. I, by the way, have got you all on gallery view, so feel free to do the same if you want to. It's a networking session, so it's nice to see people, and it's nice to have a name to people's faces as well. I wear many different hats. I'm like what I like to call like a multi-passionate entrepreneur. So I run like 3 different businesses, and one of them is my school of dance. And today I'm talking about the administration side, which is often the least liked part of a business. Yes. So let me start off by a show of hands. How many do actually have office hours or admin time set aside for their business? Good. Yeah, excellent. Okay, that's already more than many people, because most people go like, oh yeah, no. And I mean, when I started out, I think my admin time, other than for marketing purposes, because I like my marketing, it's actually one of the things I teach as well. But other than that, it was like everything else was kind of pushed to one side because there was the bit that was the least liked by me. But it really helps, I have found, to hang on. I just noticed that the spotlight moved. Hang on.
I
Okay, it
just
doesn't
took you
matter.
off
You
spotlight
took me off spotlight.
so that
Okay.
everybody could see the gallery if you're doing like questions
Yeah,
and things. Yeah.
that's all right. I'm gonna try not to use the anything on the screen. But yeah, sorry, that just threw me. But yeah, little tip. It also, if you're new to it, or it doesn't just have to relate to belly dance, can be any kind of admin thing, is to actually just block out time in your diary, put it in your phone, know that that is when you need to do it. And if you look at some of the top tips for, people that actually succeed in their business, is like, do the things that you really don't want to do first thing in the morning, because then it's over and done with and you can move on. If not, you might end up procrastinating about it. I'm one of those people, and especially when it comes to the bigger things like the tax return or something like that, kind of gets often, you're like, oh, my house is never cleaner than around the time when I have to do the tax return, because that is, a way of procrastination for me. So yeah, little tip: do it, and make sure you set time aside to actually do it, because it really, really helps. So today, I am talking about music license and insurance, which are 2 very important things on the admin side to tick off our list. And it's up there as a business essential, together with the tax returns and also to the marketing. Okay. Um, And I will be opening up to questions as well. So if any questions pop into your head, write them down, and we will go over them. Okay. I'm also aware we've only got half an hour. There's so many other things I would like to put in there, but it's quite. These are like business essentials together with things like business planning and policies and things like that. So it's worth spending that bit of time on it. And to be quite honest, it's things that only need to get reviewed. Maybe a couple of times a year or once a year. So, music license. So, without music, we wouldn't be having any dance classes. And it's important that we have a music license as well. Um, Otherwise, we can basically we could be sued for copyright infringement if we are using music without actually having a license or a permission to do so. And a lot of people think, oh, but I bought the music and therefore I haven't downloaded it illegally. I have actually bought my music. But when you buy music, you only buy the rights to actually listen to it within your own home for private purposes and not for actually sharing it in a business context. So in the UK, and I'm not sure how this works for the international people attending, but in the UK, there is the PRS and the PPL that help with the licensing of music. And for some of you, this will be old news and you know this already. And for others, this might be news. So, and things change all the time as well, by the way, within this industry. So it's quite good to kind of review it maybe like biannually to see what changes has occurred within the industry. But basically, if you are a gym or a dance teacher or a hairdresser or a shop, you need a license in order to play music for as part of your business. And the PRS stands for the Performing Rights Society, and they basically ensure that the artists get a small fee, a royalty for their music. And then there's the PPL, which is the Phonographic Performance Limited, which is a copyright collective, and they then license the music. They have joined forces, so it's like a one-shop stop in the UK if you want to get a music license, which very logically they have decided to call the music license. And if you even if you don't offer classes and you maybe only perform, these are the people that you go to in order to get a license. There's actually different licenses depending on whether you teach a class or whether you perform. But the PRS PPL people, or in short, the music license people, they have introduced a tiered system based on how many people you might have, in your classes, how often your classes are, and also if you perform, there's like a separate tier for how often you perform and how large the audience. So they then basically look at these tiers and they work out how much you would need to pay. And this is normally on an annual basis for your music license. And this varies because it's personal. It's down to your individual circumstances. I have at no point paid more than was it like £90 or something like that a year. So it's not an extortionate amount. And actually, many venues, they will ask you if you have this, this license before they will allow you to come in and use their venue for a dance class. So it's good to have, not just so that you know that you've got your paperwork in order for the venue, but also, as I said, so that you can play your music knowing that you have a valid music license and therefore people can't sue you for copyright infringement. So the license that you then get will cover you in your dance studio, and in this day and age, it's also worth saying that it'll cover you for Zoom and Skype classes as well. It does not cover you for posting music or bits from your class or the music to promote your classes on social media. That's a different license that's needed for that. And any of you who will be using Facebook or Instagram, which is basically the same now because they have been bought by the Facebook people, So the rules are the same. They're really clamping down on copyright. And it means that unless you have some special agreement, which by the way is really, really difficult to get with Facebook because there's a lot of paperwork involved. If you haven't got an agreement like that, they can basically remove your content. They can even, I have heard people talking about suspension of accounts. Most often than not, you'll get a little message saying that the clip that you're trying to share has been muted or in parts muted because they know that there is music in there. And some people have asked me, oh, but if it's only 10 seconds, will it work? But unfortunately, the little bots, the little technology machines that keep an eye on this for social media platforms, it recognizes that really, really quickly. So bear that in mind. The music license is for your classes, unfortunately not for the marketing of your classes. So if you want it to show what you've been doing or something like that. Going into I thought I wanted to cover something on the whole social media thing, but there's a lot when it comes to music licenses on social media platforms. And I think for most people, the easiest way would be to just keep it in mind that you are, even if you put in your post that no copyright infringement intended, it doesn't cover you. So, you know, you could still be done on social media because they have their own policy for posting materials on their platforms. And those platforms are unfortunately not owned by us. So do keep that in mind. So that's kind of the music thing. Are there any questions in regards to music, the use of music? I know we're covering the technical side.
Yeah, Dorte. So, what about things like haflas if you organise haflas?
Yes, you can. Again, that is in your music license that you
Hmm.
can then use music for that as well. So I have always been open about that when I do because that counts as an event and a performance. So again, that goes onto your music license as well. Sorry, so there was
I've got a
something.
question.
Yeah, Sarah?
Because I do obviously pay music license, but how do you calculate the numbers for the year? Because it's like you can't tell what you're going to get in the future. You know, I might have 20 students this week, but in 6 months' time, I might not have any.
Yeah.
And
You
then
do.
how do you also calculate how many people you're going to get at, say, I don't know, a hafla? Again, it's a complete guess.
It's a guesstimate, isn't it? I mean, and with a lot of these things, this is a guesstimate. So I always recommend being open because whenever I renew my music license, I speak to the people at the music license. And if there hasn't been any massive changes, you know, I don't feel that I would need to. But especially initially, I'd say, you know, like this is the business I have. I run X amount of classes a week, but the number varies between, I don't know, 5 and 25, you know, and then they will take an average often of that. The same will go for your haflas. I mean, if you plan your hafla, and I'm kind of going back to the marketing again a tiny bit, when you plan your haflas, you will have an idea how many people you would like to come. Okay, that might not happen, but if you have if you then look at when you've maybe hosted a hafla before and how many people did come, you know, and then you guesstimate, you know, based on that. The tiers, and I see hands, and that's great. We'll get to you in a minute. The tiers that are in there are quite generous. Okay, so it's not like if you're 5 off, you know, you're going to be done for it. We're talking more like hundreds and so on in their tiers. So I wouldn't worry about it. I would just be honest when applying for the music license or renewing it or wondering whether you need to update anything because all of a sudden maybe you're teaching another class a week. Let me just say, I've been there. I went from having 3 classes a week to 4 classes a week. And that didn't actually affect it. So, you know, it really depends on your individual circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I saw another one. Sorry.
Ricky,
Yeah, Ricky?
Thank you. When I was doing a hafla just before lockdown, I contacted the music license people to ask if I was covered, and they told me I was not.
Oh,
So
okay.
so what we did was then had it as an event through the hall, and I tried several times. My experience of people at the music licenses, if you get an agreement from them about what you're doing, is get them to send you an email, because I've had all sorts of trouble with them. But like, for instance, I've just added my exercise classes to my music license, and they've asked me to say if my numbers will be under 2,000. So I know that other people in the network that I belong to have had a different experience with the music license. So do keep a contact number of anybody that gives you information, and get them to email you to say that that's what they've told you, because it varies. But like I say, I was told Haflers weren't covered.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, because I guess it depends on what you agree initially. I mean, I've always had like a write-up that tells me what I am covered for anyway. Um, what about, can I go to UK because you arrange things as well? So
Yeah,
you're
so
covered
I've
through
I
that.
think I think I've always assumed that they do cover them, Ricky, and I've never gone down the route of like specifically pinning them down. So that's very interesting. Um,
Well, it's
Often,
just that I couldn't find anything in my terms and conditions that
yeah,
said about it, and so I checked, and they said no, you weren't
I think.
covered.
I think often the venues I use are covered themselves. So Katrine has just asked about, would a gym that has its own music license cover me for my classes? Now this is so I teach at Dance City, which I teach for them, and then I have my own classes elsewhere. So their take on it was, if you hire the studio and you are running your own classes, then you have to have your own music license. If the dance studio is hiring you and they have a music license, then you will be covered through them. That's my understanding of that, Katrina. Yeah. Is that what you think, Dorte? Does that
Yes,
agree?
it is. Yeah, because I know
Thank you.
I've taught in studios before, in like in a gym, but I wasn't technically on their times table, and therefore I had to prove that I had my own music license. So yeah, but like you say, if not, then they provide, because obviously they play music anyway. They have got a music
Yeah.
license. They play music, you know, for all their classes and in the general rooms as well.
But a lot of us teach in community halls, and going back to the Hafler, the way I had to do it, because this is what the licensed people told me to do, was we had to, in order to use the venue's music license, we couldn't, because I was technically a business, I couldn't use the venue's music license, so we had to do it whereby we made a donation to the hall.
Okay. I guess again that could, yeah, I mean it could vary. All the venues I've been in and all the community calls, they have requested that I would show my own music license as well, because like you say, you they will often have like a whole host of people, you know, like teaching different classes. So that's the best way for them to safeguard themselves, by saying the responsibility is actually on the business owner, which in this case is you guys. I hope that clarified some questions on music licenses, because I want to move on to insurance as well, which is another big one for us. And if I have missed you, then please wave and unmute yourself. But otherwise, I will move on to insurance. Okay, so you could say, oh, this is why do I need insurance? Well, obviously, we hope to teach as safely as possible, and belly dance is, thank goodness, usually done in the usual style, a safe, a relatively safe form of exercise. But accidents can always happen, and we obviously, I know a lot of you from also from the Safety to Belly Dance JWAAD course, so you will have heard me say this. And there's a lot that we can do to kind of keep our students safe within our classes, and when we teach, there's a lot of health and safety. But accidents happen, and I have over the years heard a lot of stories, you know, from other teachers about students, you know, who injure themselves in class. Some literally trip over their own feet. Okay, and others, you know, they might slip on a veil, they might fall down the stairs, going from the studio, and you know, God forbid that something like that should happen. But accidents happen in the world, and it's then what we need to do about that and how we can protect ourselves. One way is obviously how we teach, and that's the safety course, which kind of helps you to get that mindset for everything you need to look at. And another thing is that obviously, as a belly dance teacher, as a business, you need to have as a minimum a public liability insurance, so that you know that you have taken a precaution in case there should be any claims made against you. The safety and the welfare of the students always comes first, but you need to have the paperwork in order. It's a bit like, having a house and you wouldn't have any insurance, I'm sure, most people would, because even though we hope nothing will happen, it can. So public liability covers against injury or property damage. And again, a lot of venues will require that you have this and you show, your insurance before they allow you to rent parts of their venue for your classes or events. Now, certain areas of dance obviously require more physical exertion than others. But even in a gentle belly dance class, if you're teaching a move to one of your students and they injure themselves, they could hold you responsible for not explaining the move correctly, or for the injury that's it causes them. They could also happen to trip over a dance prop, for example, or slip on the floor. Or if you're teaching cane, I mean, please, if you teach anything like props and things like that, please point out the health and safety. Yes, but what happens if the cane slips and it smashes into a mirror or something like that? So damages can happen both to the students as well as to the venue, and that's why as a dance teacher we need as a minimum the public liability to cover legal liability for third-party injuries and property damage. Another thing that is really worth looking at, whether you have, is what's known as professional indemnity. Now, professional indemnity will cover you if someone from your class injures themselves following the advice that you gave, but outside the lesson itself. So it could be advice that you've given and they go off and they practice. And I mean, I always ask my students, especially my high level students, to maybe practice some moves, for next week. And if anything should happen because of that, maybe they've misunderstood or something like that, then your public liability will not as such cover it, but a professional indemnity insurance is what will then cover you in that instance. Other things to look at, and again, this depends on what level you're teaching at, but personal accident cover as well, because as a teacher, you could happen to injure yourself. So what happens if you need to take time off, or you need physiotherapy or something like that? So personal accident cover, you might already have that, or you might need to look at having that in addition to your dance teacher's insurance as well. And if it was your livelihood, then also a personal accident cover could go in and cover for like loss of earnings as well. Then there's the whole thing about equipment. So compensation for equipment, and that includes repairs and replacement. And again, by show of hands, how many people log equipment with them to a class that is probably worth more than, I don't know, £100 or something like that in total? Yes, there's some hands that, yes, okay, all right, okay, yeah, 75, more than 75, 50. I feel like an auctioneer. But if you had to all of a sudden replace this in one go, and I'll tell you one thing, it was actually my yoga teacher who made me think about that, because she had her sound system and everything else stolen. Okay, I don't know, it was including everything for her yoga class, because she had it all in one bag. She had it at the venue, she went to get something, she came back and it was gone. Okay, and it was in a place where there shouldn't be any people with unauthorized access. So yes, if anything should happen to your equipment, and that could be that it gets stolen, it gets damaged, you drop it, and obviously there is always a bit that we have to pay ourselves in case, but it's worth looking at that as well, especially if maybe you have a lot of gear that you're locking around for your classes. But often they will also cover you if you are teaching from home, if you are teaching classes or online and things like that, and you're using, this is specifically for your class. I'm not talking of just using your little home sound system, but something specific for class, that would then also come under that. So to recap, there's many different levels of insurance, and this kind of depends on what you need as a teacher. If you got like how should I say, like a standard way of teaching where you go out and you teach in a public place, then it's the public liability insurance that you will need as a minimum. Okay, and I will read this legal wording. Okay, public liability insurance is designed to protect you and your business from the significant costs associated with any legal action as a result of your actual or alleged negligence that has caused a third party property damage or personal injury whilst you were basically doing your business. And on top of that, I would then also look at things like professional indemnity, to kind of just have that extra safety on top. Some insurance companies don't actually have it included, but you can go to other insurance companies and have it as an add-on as well, if your current insurance should not offer that. And whether you then also want to look at the other ones that we mentioned, that will be down to you and how big your business is and the way you run your businesses. So also I would recommend looking at a cover that gives you extra add-ons. Okay, there's like a handful of specialist companies that offer insurance for dance teachers, and many of them have like add-ons like memberships or magazines, or you might have like discounts for other services that you're likely to use in your business. So it's really about shopping around, and to be quite honest, it's not quite as bad as car insurance. Now, car insurance, hopefully you all know, when you have to renew that, you really have to shop around because they will put £100 on. And in my experience over the years, that's not really been the case with dance teacher insurance. But it's kind of your responsibility to still look at to see whether you're insured for what you need to be insured for and whether you might get a better deal elsewhere. So the time that I've spent teaching the safety course, there's like a handful of businesses that always come out and get mentioned the most. And one of them is Insure for Sport. So Insure and then the number 4 Sport, co.uk, and that's great, especially if people work with other kind of movement modalities and other sports classes, personal trainers, and so on. There is the Mosaic Arabic Dance Network, or Madden, that also offer one, which includes like their membership and their magazine. And there is EMD UK, which is the Exercise Movement and Dance Partnership, and that's a national governing body for group exercises, in short EMD. UK, and they also offer one. And I had a discussion with Kay leading up to this, and yeah, they accept JWAAD teacher training qualifications as a qualification. So it's quite a, how should I say, quite a competitive rate for the marketplace as well. And they include basically everything, both the public liability and the professional indemnity and everything as well. So worth shopping around. And otherwise, I mean, I know from personal experience, also colleagues who have just gone to their existing insurance company and said, I've been insured with you for X amount of years. I am now doing this. Would you offer? And sometimes by having that connection already, they know you will get a good deal. So questions on insurance, or any of you, I mean, if anyone wants to recommend an insurance company that they've been using for many years, I mean, I'm up for it. This is a network and sharing event, so let us know. No, everyone's just going like, no.
Well,
Okay.
so I have like a business insurance because it's the whole business thing, but I was looking into getting an insurer to offer insurance for people that had completed the safety course for JWAAD, and but I was working on trying to find out whether it was worth pursuing to see if it compared well with other things, you know. My sticking point with it has been that they, like the Madden one, they like to have a disclaimer filled in for live class, face-to-face classes, but they also want it by people who are, if you do a Zoom class or an online thing, and I'm like, but it's just not feasible. So we've sort of stuck there, because other than that, it was really good because it included public liability, professional indemnity, damage to equipment. So it seemed like a very comprehensive policy, and the brokers would deal with you direct, so you didn't have to go through JWAAD or through an organisation like Madden, so you could deal direct. So I'm still pursuing that, and I'll let you know, folks, if anything comes of it that they'll cover online.
Definitely. And in the chat, it was also asked, what do you do about Zoom? And obviously in Zoom, it's not public liability because you're not in a public space teaching. So it will be more on the personal indemnity side. And personal indemnity is actually not covered by Madden, but I also have it, funny enough, in writing from their insurance brokers that they do cover Zoom. So they haven't been able to give me a clarification. I asked for one for this session here. But it's definitely something, and again, it kind of goes back to a bit like with the music license. If you have it in writing from the insurer, then that is what you have to go by. And obviously, if you're teaching online and on Zoom, then you still have the responsibility to kind of oversee your student safety. But obviously what you can then do is like you can also put the ownership, as you always should, going back on them, because you might not be able to see exactly their setup or know exactly what their circumstances are where they're teaching. So yeah, I would always specify that and make sure that you have it in writing.
So yeah, Sasha's just asking, is there anything specific to teaching via Zoom with people in their own homes? Other than your normal safety instruction, I would say, Sasha, which is more important to be verbalised that when people are on Zoom than when they're in the class with you. But, yeah.
Yes. Any other questions or comments?
What happens if you are teaching classes outside? So our club has public liability insurance for the venue that we regularly teach in, but with COVID we did some classes on the beach when we couldn't get into our studio, which was lovely, and we weren't sure that our cover it would cover us. So I took out the Madden one for myself on top, just to be on the safe side. But I'm wondering, if you shift your regular place of teaching, would you be covered, particularly if you're outside and completely different surface or different environment?
Okay, you've done outdoor classes.
Yeah. So you're if you are insured, Jane, and you have public liability insurance, it's you personally as a teacher that is insured. So it's wherever you teach the class that is insured. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you're outdoors, there's different things. So you need to tell people to be careful of it underfoot. Yeah, you can't really do spins on the beach. Things like that. So you don't want people...
We're doing a lot of isolations and no travelling.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, anybody, thank you so much, Dorte. That was interesting, useful to be able to ask those questions as well and clarify a few things. So thank you.
My pleasure.